Of course, it's the middle of football season, but it's also the start of basketball practice. And Isaac Trotter, CBS Sports, 24/7 Sports college basketball writer, is joining us now. You can tell, like, we were at basketball practice the other day for Illinois, got to talk with Brad Underwood. Yes, it's middle of football season. And it was a good time because Illinois fans need to think about something other than football for at least a week. There's a bad taste in the mouth after that Indiana loss, but it's here, Isaac Trotter, and you came out with your top 25. How's it feel right now? It's right around the corner.
Yeah, it's super fun. Yeah, I just came out with that top 25. It feels good to kind of put the pen to paper on how you actually feel about teams. And now preview season kind of starts. Like at some point, like I am ready for games to start again. And we're only basically 3 or 4 weeks away from some pretty big time exhibitions starting. Because at some point you just kind of get in the weeds of what this team could be. It's gonna be really fun to actually talk about what teams actually are. And, 3 weeks from now, we're seeing some high level exhibitions where teams are going to try to play their best rotations. I think that's really, really exciting.
Yeah, you released your top 25 preseason rankings, which I love because one, it's a great reminder of who's on what team, who has what players. We need that every year. So you've done a great job all offseason about that. But you came out with your rankings. If people want to check it out, it's on the front page of Illini Inquirer. It's on the front page of 247sports.com. But how did you settle on where you put Illinois?
Yeah, for me, I keep thinking about tiers, and Illinois for me is kind of in that top of that tier 2 of teams that, like, hey, with the right breaks, they could theoretically work their way to being a national championship contender. I have Illinois number 13 overall, number 4 in the Big Ten. I kind of went into the exercise thinking Illinois would be 3rd in the Big Ten for me, behind Purdue and Michigan, and I thought maybe that they were ahead of UCLA, but the more I look at that UCLA roster, the more I think the pieces with them are going to work at a high level. And to be honest, some of my trepidation of like some of the injury stuff that's kind of gone on with Illinois right now with Andrej Stojakovic's knee sprain bumped them down for me just a tad, right? Like to number 13, but you're still kind of in that range where if with the right breaks, this team could really, elevate into the top 10. And I just keep going back to, I think this offense is going to be one of the best units in college basketball. And that's kind of where the bedrock of that ranking starts to come into play. And again, one of the most under-discussed things about this offseason at Illinois' defense last year was actually solid. Like they were 4th in the Big Ten in defensive efficiency in conference play. So like if this group can just go from solid to, decently good, I think that's the recipe for Brad Underwood to have a top 10 team in the country.
Yeah, so we'll dive into some of the things we heard from Brad Underwood, what Isaac thinks about this, what I think about this, the roster, what we're hearing on some of that stuff as well. But the other part about your rankings that stands out to me, and we talked about this the last time you came on, with the quality of opponent that Illinois is playing. I think I have them 9 of your top 25, and I obviously take Illinois. That's 9 of the other top 24. They're playing this season, and they also play another one of them, Florida, in a secret scrimmage. Swamp 24/7 reported that, and that's widely known now. So we are going to know what this team is by March, Isaac.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And that's where it gets exciting because I feel like sometimes schedules can give you a hint of what a coach feels about his roster. And I think Brad Underwood's scheduling this year has shown that he thinks that this team can win at a really, really high level. I love the different styles that you're going to see as well. And this defense will be tested by, a Texas Tech offense that I think could really, really be good. Your rebounding is going to be really tested in that Florida game, in that Florida exhibit or secret scrimmage, whatever that ends up looking like, because they're going to really try to thump you inside. You're going to have all of these different tests. There's almost zero downside to playing a high level non-conference slate like this. And it's an opportunity where if you can, split these against the top 10 teams you play on your schedule, you have a huge, huge case for a top 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. So we'll know a lot about this team. And if they can get healthy, I'd love to see it earlier rather than later, the full version of what they actually look like.
I do find it interesting Brad opted for another secret scrimmage rather than another public exhibition. And I think this is just because they love repping scenarios, right? They love being able to control it and say, all right, we're down 3 with 2 minutes left. How do we play this? Or baseline out of bounds, do this. But what do you think about them playing Florida in Orlando? What do you think Brad Underwood and the Illini can learn about themselves that day?
Yeah, I think the interior of your front line is really going to be tested. I think Brad Underwood has talked early and often this offseason about he thinks his front line is one of the best in the country. Florida's number 1. on all of those front court rankings. They have Alex Condon back, who I think is a future NBA player. Tommy Houck back, who is kind of like a 3-4 wing 4, who I think could be an NBA player. Ruben Chinyelu is enormous, 7 foot, 260 pounds, probably an NBA player. And then they have Micah Handlockton back as well. So they have 4 guys who I think could theoretically, start for 95% of high majors. And now this year, I think what Florida is going to do a little differently is they're going to play big. They're going to play Houck at the 3 and Condon at the 4, and then put their center in there, whether that's Chinyelu or Handlockton. And I'm curious to see if this opens up the door for Illinois to try some big lineups to try to counteract that. Like, could you see lineups where Ben Hummerickhouse shifts to the 3 and Mrkovic is at the 4 and Tomislav Ivisic is at the 5? If you're going to play your twin towers, your 7 feet or 14 feet of Ivisic, this would be the spot to do it, right? Like you could match up theoretically with that. So a great challenge. Can't overlook those guards either. Boogie Fland and Xavier Lee can absolutely go. So it's just a high level game. But I think Brad Underwood, we might not, but Brad Underwood will learn a lot about just how good his front court will be when they go up against the Gators.
Yeah, going up against the national champion, and he loves the SEC, man. He loves SEC ball. He's gonna talk up the Big Ten every chance he gets. But based on how many SEC teams he is scheduling, Isaac, it is clear he loves the style of SEC play. And to be honest with you, when we talk about if you want to make a run in the NCAA tournament, you're going to have to go through some SEC teams. And I just think that athleticism, the size, especially in that front court, we worry about how are they going to guard 4s. This is a great test of that.
And just the SEC is great. Like the SEC is really invested into college basketball now. This is not a football first conference or only conference. Football is obviously number 1, but what a level of resources into the SEC really shows up in the recruiting rankings. It shows up in the transfer portal, and it shows up with who they're able to keep, right? Like Florida being able to keep all these guys is no coincidence. Like they've really, really invested into being great at basketball. So yeah, I mean, if you want to beat the best, you want to be the best, you have to beat the best. And the SEC has proven that they were the number 1 conference in college basketball last year. I think Illinois and the Big Ten are going to be a part of the resurgence of the Big Ten. I think the Big Ten will be the number 1 conference in college basketball this season, just when you look at the depth of the league and the star power. But there's no question that the top 2 basketball leagues right now are the SEC and the Big Ten.
You spoke about the injury news. Ty Rodgers going to be out for a while. At least Brad Underwood, he didn't tell us exactly what the timeline is. Doesn't sound like he knows. I asked him, do you expect him to play this year? And he said, I'm not going to say he will. I'm not going to say he won't. But obviously that is a longer term injury. But Andrej Stojakovic, another injury, knee injury during the offseason here. He's out a few more weeks. So we don't know exactly when he'll be back. I asked Brad, is he going to be back for the season? He said, I hope so. I think that's the timeline would be that he would be back for the season, but he wouldn't commit to that. But clearly he's not going to be available for the next couple of weeks. That's a ramp up to the season. What is the impact of that? Is this team tries to get chemistry when it hasn't been together? Petrovic and Mrkovic weren't here the entire offseason. Petrovic got here basically late August, and Stojakovic has been hurt since then. So what do you think the impact of that could be early in the season, Isaac?
No, I just think that there's some kinks to work out. Like it's a 10,000 hours thing. I don't think is that like crazy of a thing when you think about like what these rosters look like. Like how many actual minutes will that starting 5 of Petrovic and Boswell and Stojakovic and whoever starts at the 4 and Ivisic, how many minutes will they have realistically played together this summer and fall? Not that much when you compare it to like what Purdue has right now or what, UCLA has right now when they're able to get Donovan Denton early. So it's just a little bit different. The Stojakovic news, when's that exhibition against Illinois State? October 19th? Like, yeah, there's a chance he's not back for that. Like, is that a cause for panic? No, but it's certainly something that you need to get him back sooner rather than later. And we see it all the time in football too. Like somebody misses all of training camp. There's a little bit of a ramp up period early in the season as well, where like you're just like you can't really expect Stojakovic to be 100% the best version of himself, I think, when he's back in the first couple 2-3 weeks. So I'm not worried about it, but it's certainly a cause for concern because this group just hasn't had reps together with your best 5 players on the floor. And that's just way different compared to some of the other teams that, there's extra time for teams to work out together this year. Like the first practice is earlier than it has been before. You're getting more time with your team, and Illinois is a little bit behind the 8 ball in that regard.
Yeah, we've seen before just at Illinois, and I'm sure you've seen this nationally, like Matthew Meyer, Marcus Domask, Kyle Boswell, they all take a little bit of time, it seems like, to ingratiate themselves. And while Stojakovic was here during the summer, he wasn't here with Petrovic. So, yeah, it's just going to be interesting to see how that's all impacted. And I think we understand that Illinois is probably not going to be a complete product right away, given the newness, given when these people all came here. But this just adds to it.
It does, but I do feel like the foundation of your team being set in stone does make it a little bit easier, right? Like when you have Boswell back and you have Hummerickhouse back and you have a Visic back, like that, just those three together just makes me feel a little bit better about like, hey, we're integrating someone else into this. Now, granted, like Stojakovic could theoretically be, your second or third leading scorer, maybe first, depending on how things shake out. So it's a huge piece. But when you have that flexibility and you also have that thecontinuity at multiple other positions, it does make this one a little bit easier, especially at a position like the wing. Like, I think point guard and center in this offense are they're the triggers. Like they're really the triggers of what you're trying to be offensively. I think Stojakovic is going to be more of a play finisher, not necessarily a play creator. And so I think that might be a little bit easier to massage him into the rotation once he finally gets healthy.
Yeah, Brad said he likes his downhill ability. So maybe secondary creator there. And then he's going to shoot a lot more catch and shoots, which he did not have at Cal, right? I mean, you watch more of the film than I did. There was not a lot of open catch and shoots for Andrej Stojakovic.
Very few. No, I don't have synergy open in front of me right now, but it wasn't a lot. And the other thing too, I think Illinois' transition attack is going to be a very different game plan than what Cal was as well. So like you're going to probably be able to get a few more looks in the open floor. Those transition. I was doing the data on it before, like open catch and shoot threes. The median average on that, I think teams shot 37% on that last year in college basketball. Transition threes, it was 35%. Guarded catch and shoot threes was like down at 29%. So like that's the quality of look that Stojakovic could theoretically be getting more in a lineup like this with a 5-out center with extra transition. Like it matters, and it's the data is there to prove it. Like not all threes are created equal, and we have a lot of data that points that or backs that point up.
Before we dive into more of the new guys, which is always more interesting and always going to get a little more fodder, like. Even somebody in Illinois said, I don't think people talk a lot about Kylan Boswell and what he can be this year. And Tomislav Ivisic, what he can be in a year or two with Illinois. So let's bring up those two first. Where do you rank those two among returning duos in the Big Ten?
Well, there's some really good duos in the Big Ten. So Braden and Trey Kaufman-Renn, Braden Smith and Trey Kaufman-Renn are obviously one. Like remove that. I don't think you could look at any other duo other than Visic and Boswell and comfortably put them ahead of them. Now, Jackson Shelstad and Nate Biddle at Oregon, I think would theoretically be in that conversation. I like John Blackwell and Nolan Winter a lot at Wisconsin this year. I think that's going to be a good team. Michigan State's like their collection of guys that are coming back, but is good, but they don't have like that duo. It's not like your Jeremy Fears Jr. and Jackson Kohler. That's going to be like that, right? When you look at what Boswell does and what Ivisic does and how important they are to both offense and defense, that's the second best duo in the Big Ten, like of the returners. And that ability to have those two dudes back, like I think Boswell can be an all Big Ten type of talent this year because you factor in the extra rim pressure that he's had, his ability to play on the ball and off the ball. I thought Brad brought up a great point earlier this week. His screening is unbelievable. He was the Drew Holiday of the Big Ten last year as a screener, operating in the dunk. He was operating in the dunker spot. It's exactly like what they were, how the Boston Celtics, like their big implement of that offensively, that's what he was for them. And especially what he does defensively as well. If he just shoot, like I was talking about this with somebody, like he just needs to learn how to shoot the good threes and, pass up the bad ones. And once he does that, once that finally clicks, he is going to be an all Big Ten type of player. And he could be better than Bruce Thornton. Like he can be better than Jackson Shelstad. Like he can be one of the 5 or 6 best guards in the Big Ten. And then you add that in with what Ivisic does, like, the stat I keep going back to with Illinois, and you can read it in the top 25. Illinois shot 70% at the rim last year when Ivisic was on the floor. 70%. Like that's a crazy, crazy number. And it just speaks to his ability as a playmaker, his ability to bend defenses in weird ways. And if he can add a little bit more low post game, like you're talking about those two guys, like being the best players at their respective positions. And that gives you a huge, huge leg up.
Yeah, one thing we don't talk about with Andrej Stojakovic probably enough is just like all the Trey White points he can get off just like the back cuts from Ivisic.
Just fling the ball up to the square and Stojakovic is levitating over somebody for a layup. And that's the thing, like Trey White had a stretch down the stretch in Big Ten play where he was scoring like 20 a game, and I don't think they ran a single play for him.
Right.
And so like that's where Stojakovic, it's like you can find 16 points a game for this team, not that hard, because like without many plays being run for you. And that's something that like I think you saw that in the NCAA tournament with Kentucky. Kentucky didn't run a ton of plays for Ortega Oweh, but his just ability to be in the right place at the right time helped him, be that team's leading scorer. And I think Stojakovic, just the lobs over the top from Tommy, the extra transition, extra catch and shoot threes, mix in a little bit of booty ball, and your path to 16 points a game really isn't that complicated.
I think you, myself, and Michael Tuip have been a little higher on the return of Ben Hummerickhouse and what that could mean in a year two. And you've been on this more than anybody nationally, Isaac, is a year two leap for transfers and what a second year in a system could be. And of course, getting the Pavia ruling is the reason Ben Hummerickhouse gets a year two. It was not a failure of a year one, but clearly it was a roller coaster and a very up and down year one for Ben Hummerickhouse, making that leap from the Missouri Valley to the Big Ten. What do you think a year two could look like for Ben Hummerickhouse? Because I think Brad Underwood was trying to, and his staff have said this offseason, like, hey, this might be a bigger deal than other people think.
I think Ben can lead this team in threes. 73s is firmly on the table for him, even in a 23 to 27 minute a game role. And I think just that ability to stretch the floor, not just for making, the threes at the college line, but he has an ability to really pull from the NBA line as well, like deep, deep threes, especially from the slot. That just made Illinois really tough to guard. Again, that Oregon game where they ran that basically some of those, that horns look with him and Tomislav Ivicic was just giving Oregon fits, and they just couldn't get out to Ben from those deep, deep slot threes. They couldn't really guard Tommy. It's opening up shots at the rim, cutting lanes are there, and it gave them issues. I just think that Ben, like, settling in, understanding where I'm going to get my shots every time, understanding that I don't just have to take threes, and threes aren't the only way I can bring value. He's added weight this year. It was like up to 240. I think that means that he can bang with, the Nick Martinellis of the world, the Devin Royals of the world a little bit more effectively defensively. I think you could see a little bit more from him as a post-up threat. It's just like, hey, knowing where I'm going to get my shots, knowing how I play with Tommy, knowing the high-low stuff that I can have there, just understanding like what my job is every single time I go on the floor. If he could add a little bit more as a rebounder and you're making 73s, that's a really, really valuable role player. And yeah, the year two transfer jump is a big deal. And we've seen guys like elevate from a good player into a star. I don't think Ben's a star, but he can go from like being an erratic role player into being a really solid, serviceable, like just consistent role player. And that really helps this team. I think he could take a really big jump, even if the numbers may not fully show it. I think some of the numbers will, but I don't think he's going to be like this guy who's averaging 14 a game.
No, and like you just think it's a little increase in consistency with shooting that just comes from confidence. I think it was just confidence for him, because when he was confident, boy, he could make 5, 6 in a game. And then just getting a little bit better defensively. I think we know he's limited, but just getting a little bit better because we know he cares. We know he tries on that end. So getting stronger, how much does that help and being part of this system? And then just a little more rebounding. Like that frustrated me probably more than anything with him last year, because you're big enough, you try hard enough, like you should be able to rebound. So just a little bit of that. I mean, then he's around a 10-point a game scorer, allows you to do offensively what you do with all that space, because you got him and Ivicic. I mean, think of all the space you have there for your guards and your wings. And then just getting a little bit better defensively makes Illinois just a little bit better defensively.
And it's just like, he also kind of just gives you just like that, kind of can win you a game almost if he has those 6 threes or those 3 or 4 threes in a row, like those little heaters can just change games. And, I think there were times last year where I felt like his value was only tied to threes going in. And like that made it his job like really, really hard. It's like, oh, when the jumper's not going in, I don't really bring anything else to the game. Like, I think finding ways to impact the game in when your 3 isn't dropping is going to be really, really important. I think he has more of a mid-post backtown game that they can get to. I don't think they need it a ton with this group, especially if Stojakovic is that type of guy. But like, why can't he add a little bit more attacking long closeouts? Like that could easily be added to his game. Remember that one time he had that, I think it was Oregon even, tacked long closeout, dunked all over somebody, had no emotion. Everyone's like, where did that come from? Like you could add more of that to your game a little bit this year as just that connective piece. Like he can be a fine player for them this year. And I think last year, like the hype got too much. Like the Dalton Connect comps were stupid. Even I messed it up too. I had him. I did like my individual archetypes thing. I had him as one of the top stretch fours in the transfer portal. Maybe he was like, I think I had him number 2 or number 3 of the stretch fours. Like that maybe was a too lofty of a comp, but he could easily theoretically like step back right back into that role where he's making 73s at a 38% clip, giving you rebounding, giving you defense at 6'9", 240, and he's 23 years old. That's a really, really valuable player.
Yeah, it's a starter, right? It can be a starter quality player on a really good Big Ten team. All right, Illini fans, you got some great opportunities for tailgating coming up with the USC homecoming game this weekend, Ohio State in a few weeks, and Omaha Steaks from their handcrafted steaks are some of the most tender cuts of meat you will find. But Omaha Steaks also delivers the world's best tailgating experience from their chicken wings, smash burgers, and their big deli-style franks. Last weekend for our family fun night, I chose Sandlot as a movie, and we did a lot of baseball things, and we ripped into the Omaha Steaks big deli-style franks. It's like you go to a ballpark, get those all-beef hot dogs, some of the best dogs I've ever had. And now, during their Red Hot Sale event, you can get 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com and get some of those dogs. Get some of those great smash burgers and chicken wings. Go to omahasteaks.com, and our listeners get an extra $35 off with promo code Illini at checkout. So get fired up for fall grilling season with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during the Red Hot Sale event, and for an extra $35 off, use promo code Illini at checkout. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $35 off with promo code Illini at checkout. See site for details. All right, Mihailo Petrovic, huge piece. He's here. He's been here for a month. Unsurprisingly, there's been an acclimation process. Brad talked about he's adapting to playing off the ball, which he's got to do on a team that's got Tomislav Ivičić and Kyle and Boswell. Andrej Stojakovic is going to have the ball in his hands at times. Keaton Wagler had the ball in his hands at times. And defense, we know, is going to be a struggle at times, especially if teams can pick on him. But that's why this next month feels big for him. I don't know if I'm going to buy into like the Keaton Wagler is going to start over him, even though the hype is getting big with Keaton. Petrovic has got to be a big part of this team. And I still think this next month, like he can settle in Isaac. So what do you think the next month's got to be like for Petrovic leading into the season?
Yeah, I'm just curious to see like what that off-ball role looks like, because he has really just played with the ball in his hands so much. And when you're just used to playing one way and it's like, hey, it's middle ball screens, I'm reading the low man, I'm manipulating the defense, I'm finding an open shooter, I'm cutting through, and then I'm getting the ball again, and we'll run another pick and roll. Like that, like when you play like that way over and over again, like it's maybe hard to shift off the ball. But I think he can add a little bit of something different to this group. I think he really has to go all in on being like, hey, when I get the ball in transition, pedal to the metal. Like I am flying up the floor and I'm going to create advantages. I'm sucking the defense into the paint. I'm finding Tomislav Ivičić for those trail threes, kick ahead threes for Stojakovic or Boswell or Hummerickhouse, whatever that is. That's going to be my identity. And, off the ball, I think there's some concerns about like how effectively he can score. But like, I wonder how much they weaponize him as a screener to make defenses like feel him a little bit more when he's playing off the ball. Kind of like what they did with Boswell a little bit as well. Like you can do some inverted ball screens. Like Merkovic's handle is something that I think they want to tap into. Could you do like where, Mihailo Petrovic is setting a ball screen for David Merkovic and making this 4-man have to, do something weird. Like that's some of the stuff that I think you can do with him off the ball that could theoretically help. And then defensively, like, can he bring some like, just some randomness to this defense? Like you're old. You've seen everything defensively. Like he knows that he's undersized. He knows he has to take risks and gambles sometimes to make plays defensively. If he could bring some randomness to this defense, I think that's his path to adding value to this club.
Yeah, he's a guy that, in the half court, you could probably find some matchups, get some switches and really attack him. That's going to be a concern for this team, but he's clearly a guy who can chase people. Chase some good shooters. I'm also wondering if he's a guy that can give you some full court pressure, right? Like they want to force some more turnovers, and we'll get into the defense here. I'm wondering if they borrow that a little bit from the Indiana Pacers and just throw some full court pressure at him and use him that way defensively just to make some people uncomfortable. So we'll dive a little bit more into the defense here in a minute, Isaac. Another guy that was an interesting ad. He's kind of just an X factor. I don't know what to expect out of Zvonimir Ivičić. I've been less in on the Twin Towers lineup. I just get really concerned about that defensively. And Brad did throw some cold water on that. And I just think when you got Ben Hummerickhouse and David Merkovic, those guys make sense 40 minutes at the 4. But what do you think of what Zvonimir's role is going to be on this team and the potential upside downside of a 2 Ivisic Twin Towers lineup?
Yeah, I think 15 to 18 minutes a game. I think that's where I view it. I think those pick and pop threes are going to be really important. I think he has more like creativity in his game than Tommy does. And
by the way, you meant 15, 18 minutes of Z on the court altogether, right?
Okay. Correct. Yes, 15 to 18 minutes a game for Zvonimir. But like, I think he's got more creativity. Like he does some weird like step throughs, Euro steps. I'm like, you're 7'5" or however big you are. Like you're enormous. Why are you doing all these things? So like, he does some awkward stuff in the paint where he'll shoot 9-foot baby hooks. Could he be a guy that like they could run offense through inside? Like that could be something that like if they want to punish mismatches that way. But you obviously know the threes are going to be there. The blocking shots are going to be there. But I'm just really more just curious of like if he can eliminate the negative, horrible plays from his like game. Like not all of them are going to go away, but like, can you eliminate like 75% of those? Because like he can kill a team when you're just like constantly getting out of position and in rotation defensively. You're constantly like making, dumb turnovers, those are some of the things that like can drive coaches up. Well, some of his shot decisions were really weird at times as well last year with Arkansas, but there's stuff there where like he can do things that not many other people can do, especially as a rim protector and as a 3-point shooter. And if he can put it all together, get a little bit stronger inside, I think he can punish mismatches a little bit more and just be a guy like Tommy, like the high-low stuff. Like I agree with you. Like, I don't think that Tommy and Z are going to play together a ton, but when they do, like, can you punish them with high lows a little bit? Like it sounds old school, but it's really effective in the NBA. It's really effective in college basketball for certain teams, especially if you're playing some of those teams that really want to deny on the perimeter. If they can, settle into some of those high lows, or again, like Tommy, instead of flinging those lobs to Will or Trey, you're flinging lobs over the top to Zvonimir. Like it can be an effective action for this team when they're on the floor together, but I just don't expect them to play too much together more than 4 to 6 minutes ish.
Yeah, you mentioned this earlier. Ben at the 3 is interesting, especially if Andre needs some time to ramp up and all that. So I'm interested to see a little bit of that lineup, but I'm also interested in it because David Mirkovic is a really interesting player. I feel like, I know what Z is. I've seen him at this level. David Mirkovic and Mihailo Petrovic are the 2 guys in the exhibition I'm most interested to see, just because we haven't seen him play here. We haven't seen him play with these people. And Mirkovic is something they don't have otherwise. Like Z's this long, lanky, not very strong, but a great shot blocker. Hummerickhouse, more shooter. He'll try hard defensively, but not going to give you much rebounding. Mirkovic is tough, physical, skilled, rebounder. So I'm just interested. That front court, I'm really excited about. I think it's going to be a real strength of this team, but I'm just interested how it all kind of works itself out together, how they all play together.
I'm sure I'm definitely going to be overreacting to 2-man lineup sample sizes as I dive into the data and be like, oh, like this, you know what I mean? I have to try to temper the things of like, oh, maybe the threes all went in on that when Mirkovic and Ivisic were on the floor together. But yeah, no, Mirkovic, I think they've leaned him out a little bit. I think that's like kind of the game plan there, which I think makes sense. I really wonder how much they weaponize his balls or his ball handling and some of his decision making as well. Because I love the idea of this team of having like really good passing connectors on the floor. If Petrovic and Ivisic and Mirkovic, and I like Boswell's decision making, and we'll see if Stojakovic get there too. Like this could be one of the best passing teams in the Big Ten, and the ball just popping all over the floor is something that's pretty exciting if Mirkovic can really buy into that and be a piece that they can trust to run some stuff through. And like I said, like even the inverted pick and rolls, like he's a guy that I think it makes a little bit more sense for them to do that as well. I think this is like, I've watched a lot of Alabama, and Nate Oates does this really well for guys too. Those inverted pick and rolls just off inbounds plays, just to steal easy buckets. And he's basically just throwing a pass like the high post, like 18-foot area right above the free throw line. And Mark Sears is coming right around and setting a pick and roll for Mo Diabate, and Diabate is getting right to his left hand off an inbounds play for an easy bucket. I could see something like that with Illinois if Mirkovic's handle is what they like.
I think it was 4 years ago, we're at Big Ten Media Days, which is going to happen here in a couple of weeks. And we heard Matt Painter really raving about Braden Smith. I'm not going to go to this level because we know Brad can get a little lofty and use the word elite a little bit, a lot in the offseason. But they are not talking about Keaton Wagler, like the number 150 prospect in the class of 2025. They are not talking about him like the 260th guy in the composite rankings, right? Like this guy's going to play and he's going to make an impact. What are your realistic expectations for Keaton Wagler? Because they need another guard. With Ty Rodgers out, they need another guard. They could use another shooter off the bench. And they rave about the 6'6" freshman guard's IQ and shooting here, Isaac.
The guy I keep thinking about is John Blackwell. A couple of years ago when he came to Wisconsin, it was like, what was that team? That was the 2023-24 Wisconsin. It was, Chucky Hepburn, Max Klesmit, it was Stephen Crowell was there, Tyler Wall. And this just underrated freshman comes in and just plays a lot and makes winning plays. And I think he ended up playing 18 minutes a game for them, just was really consistent. Helped them out. Like some days he scored 2, some days he scored 12 or 13. And that's something that I think Wagler, those diamonds in the roughs are the ones that elevate a team from a good team to a great team. And I think if Wagler is that type of guy where, hey, we hit on this evaluation and we trust our eyes and we're going to double down on skilled size and shooting and playmaking, right? We're going to double down on that archetype. And he comes in and is your version of John Blackwell, where you just can trust him to throw him out on the floor for 18 minutes a game as your fourth guard. That's the good stuff. And I think that's where I think Wagler has a chance to help this team, because he, there might be times where he's playing on the ball. If Boswell, you don't love his decision making at some points, or Petrovic needs a blow and he's on the ball. And then there's other times where Stojakovic's knee is a little gimpy one day, and now you're playing off the ball. And that flexibility that he has at that size and his shooting is just a nice little piece. So, Cam Christie's an easy comp. The Jace Richardson blow up last year was insane. The Braden comp is, obviously something you think about too, with some of those underrated freshmen that just come out of nowhere. But I keep going back to Blackwell of you're not going to really read about him a lot in the preview of Wisconsin basketball before that season, but he really impacted that team as that fourth guard.
Yeah, 8 points in 18 minutes a game. For that's not ridiculous for Keaton Wagler, given the role that he could have on this team. All right, this might be the thing I'm most interested to ask you about. Underwood said on Monday, defensive changes are coming, but it's still a work in progress. He said again, we want to force more turnovers. This defense was pretty solid. I would say it's pretty sound last year, but we know some really good teams were able to really exploit it. And you have a guy who can make mid-range jumpers. They can really exploit it because they know what's coming. So what is the next step for this defense that was one of the worst in the country at forcing turnovers? What could those changes to help that realistically be, Isaac?
I'm looking at structured randomness. We've said that with the offense. I think some randomness defensively would help this group. And you brought up the great point of Petrovic as a full 94 feet pressing the basketball. Again, so the ripple effects of that are obvious. You're forcing offenses to not get into their half-court set until 22 seconds, 21 seconds, right? They're not able to get to all their counters, and suddenly it's a late clock possession where, again, the data is very clear. Late clock scenarios is a win for the defense. Your offensive efficiency rating goes down. So that's one thing. But Petrovic, especially, I was watching him, he does some weird things defensively that I think could help this group. He'll come out of nowhere and randomly just double team you at the elbow. That never happened at Illinois last year. He'll read something. You can see some of him where he knows a guy really likes to drive left and spin back to his right hand. If him or Boswell can really dial into have the freedom to hey, I know that's going to happen, I'm going to slide over and do a random double team at that point, try to draw a charge, try to strip him. Some of those things, we'll give up some rotations because we have elite rim protection on the back end and we have a lot of size on the floor. I think some of those structured randomness could really help this group so that defenses don't know what to expect every single time. You're not having the same defensive schemes every single time of a deep drop coverage like that. I think that's the way that you can start to generate a few more takeaways. Plus just added length. This team is big. Stojakovic is 6'7". Boswell, I don't look at the height. He's 6'2", but he has a huge wingspan. Mirkovic, Ivisic, other Ivisic, you're just huge. You just have a huge team. And I think that being okay with getting into rotation a few more times could theoretically help this group a little bit if you're really trying to force more turnovers. That's what makes Iowa State really good too. Taman Lipsey comes out of absolutely nowhere and they do weird, awkward, wrong things defensively, and it works. because you're just not supposed to do it like that.
Yeah, and that's the whole key, is just having a changeup. They just didn't really have a changeup whatsoever. It's like, hey, I get why you do what you do. The math makes sense, especially when you don't have a team with a bunch of great individual defenders. Makes sense, but at some point you got to have an element of surprise. That's what it comes down to, right?
A little bit, yeah. And you see that in the playoffs as well too. Like you go through the Pacers like personnel, like did they have anybody that you were like walking in the NBA season? Did anybody think like they had unbelievable defensive personnel? Not really, but they were pests and they played really, really hard. And Andrew Nembhard has turned himself into one of the best defenders in the league at the guard position. Illinois has a stud point of attack defender. Like Boswell, like anybody who doesn't have him in consideration for all Big Ten defense just isn't paying attention. He's an unbelievable defender, and the way he moves is just a little bit different. And having someone like who could weaponize his playmaking defensively a little bit more, I think just having a little bit more trust in him that, hey, like you can go freelance a little bit, and we trust you that you're going to make the right read more often than not, and it's going to help us more than it hurts us, is something that I think that this staff is really tinkering around with right now.
All right. We saw something big in college basketball, but it's starting to become a little bit of a trend. A coach retiring to set up the successor. I mean, there's a lot of things going on about Bruce Pearl we could talk about, but for me, the trend that's most interesting is he pulled the Bo Ryan. He pulled the Jay Wright. Like he retires before the season so he can handpick the successor here. What did you make of that with Bruce Pearl?
I think it was predictable. Something we had been hearing a little bit was that like Bruce's name came up for a couple different coaching jobs, including I think Indiana when it was open. And he wanted a clause written in his contract that Stephen Pearl would get the job once he was done. So like he was been angling for this for a minute. This time, I wasn't stunned that they did it. I was more stunned by that Auburn went along with it and gave Stephen Pearl a 5-year deal. They're like going all in on that. I think Stephen Pearl's actually a pretty good coach. And I think he did a lot for that group last year defensively. When I was watching them in the Final Four, like he was kind of in charge of running their defense. So, and he was like basically taking the lead on a bunch of their recruiting. So I think it'll be fine, but it's just an interesting strategy. And you better have some cachet to pull that off. And Bruce Pearl does have some cachet. I mean, I was looking at this. Auburn had one winning season in SEC play from 2001 to 2017. One. So when you get to the Final Four and you multiple Final Fours and you build one of the best teams in the SEC, like you're probably allowed a little bit more leeway. But yeah, I was a little surprised that Auburn gave Stephen a 5-year deal.
Yeah, Virginia. I mean, there's some good ways to do it. Like Wisconsin, it worked out for him, right? It's been some ups and downs with Greg Gard, but it's worked out for him. Villanova didn't. Virginia
did not. Virginia was bad. But that's why I think like Virginia is a little different than Auburn. Like that Virginia roster was trash last year, like just trash before the Tony Bennett thing. I joked with somebody like I thought Tony Bennett did that move because he did a couple of practices with the team. It was like, no, this is not going to work for me. Like I can't go out like this. But this Auburn roster a little bit different. I have them as a top 25 team, a little bit more combustible. But yeah, interesting strategy. And there's a lot of people that don't think this is going to work. So Stephen Pearl has his work cut out for him, but it's certainly something that I feel like only a few coaches can really pull off effectively.
Who else could do this? I'm trying to think of who else could pull something off like this.
To be honest, I was looking at Kansas. Like, could this happen at Kansas? They have Jock Vaughn there now, the former Nets assistant. Like, could Bill pull this off? Bill Self pull this off if, with all the health stuff kind of going on? That could theoretically work.
I mean, Michigan State, I just don't think the guy is there, right? Is there an assistant there that makes sense? I mean, Tom keeps going, man. And last year seemed so rejuvenating for him, which all of us were doubting him. And to him to have that season was unbelievable.
No, I don't think it'll happen at Michigan State. Did you see his quote the other day of like, everyone who beats me either retires or dies is what he said. And he goes, and if I somehow win the last one, like I'm never retiring. I've got kind of a heel turn on Tom. Like I love it. I love it. And that staff, your point about the staff is totally fair. I don't think anyone on that staff is like ready for the head coaching job, but I do think that staff is a better college assistant coaching staff than they've had in a while. And I think it was a big reason why they were really good last year and a big reason why they recruited the portal better in recent years. So you're right. I'm trying to think of other ones like, there's not a ton outside of Kansas, it feels like there's not really a ton right now that would make a ton of sense to pull this move off. I guess maybe like you could, I don't know. There's just there's not that many right now.
Yeah, I think we've kind of gone through the guys that would do it now. Besides Self was the one I was thinking of the most.
Okay, Hurley could.
Yeah,
because they have the built-in one in there too with Luke Murray, who's a really, really good assistant, or Kamani Young. Hurley could.
I still don't buy that he was close to retire. That guy would be miserable without bat. Like I think he's miserable doing his job anyway. He's really competitive, but like you don't have that outlet, right? I don't see what he would do without that outlet. It's probably the same thing with Self, despite all the health issues. I don't think it would go well for him, like after not having that.
I completely agree. Yeah, Dan Hurley, like the retirement stuff, I wondered if that was to help sell the book a little bit better that he was writing this offseason, or something to give it a little bit more intrigue.
I think we all have that thought. Like even you and I in this industry, it's like, man, what would it be like without this? So you have that thought.
Do I have to go to Monday press conferences again and have no?
Yeah, it's just like, yeah, I got to wake up and do a 9 to 5. That sounds miserable. Like so, even like there's moments where it's like, man, Illinois just lost by 53 points. Everyone's pissed off. Like it's like this still beats a real job, and I'm sure those guys are the same way.
I was told 63-0 wasn't supposed to happen again anymore.
It was close, 63-10. But yeah, it was really close. Last thing for you. We do have Big Ten Media Days in a couple weeks. Can't wait to see you up there, Isaac. We had a lot of coaching change in the Big Ten. So outside of Jake Diebler, is anyone entering the season with an insane amount of pressure or big pressure?
Boy, not what's up? Michael is definitely in the crosshairs, and it's not really his fault. I really don't think it's his fault, but it just is what it is. I think Diebler is definitely the right choice, but Washington's in a safe spot right now. Danny Sprinkle in year 2. Penn State, I don't think that they'll be in there.
That'd be a quick hook. This is year 3 for him, right?
Yeah, like it just doesn't make sense quite yet. Everything else is pretty stable in the Big Ten. I think Ohio State is really the biggest one. I think everybody's eyes are probably on Michigan State. How much longer does Tom want to do this? I'm sure he's going to get those questions at Big Ten Media Days, and I'm sure he'll have a funny answer about it again. But yeah, no, that's where I think. That's kind of where I keep going back to. Okay, I guess Oregon could. Dana Altman, there's been some retirement rumors there too at Oregon. So theoretically that's another one. But for the most part, I think this goes back to my theory of why the Big Ten is going to be, the best league in the country this year. Is the coaching is so stable outside of Diebler right now. The coaching hires are really good. The rosters are really good. The point guard play is really good. It's usually a pretty good combination to have a pretty darn good league.
It's amazing how long Altman's been there, how much success he has had. If that job came open, that's such a good job. The resources are great. The area is great. Big Ten, that's a fantastic job.
Also, football is still they're king. So it's hey, if we make the second weekend in basketball once every couple of years, you're probably in pretty good shape, right? You've kind of done your job. Yeah, it's a good job. And they, like you said, they have serious resources. They had the number 1 recruit in the country in there for an official visit, and they're, making a run at it. So we'll see how it goes. They got money.
Yeah. All right. Great stuff. As always, Isaac Trotter. I am biased, but I think this is unbiased. He's the best college basketball writer out there right now. You can read him at cbssports.com, 247sports.com. Isaac, thanks, buddy. We'll talk soon.
Of course. Sounds good. See you later.
Great stuff is Isaac. As always, appreciate him and his time. He's going to join us every couple of weeks during the college basketball season. I mean it. Obviously, he's a Illini Inquirer alum here, but I just think he is writing some of the most insightful, interesting stuff on college basketball right now. So go check him out at 247sports.com and cbssports.com. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe to us, hit the notifications bell. Only takes you a couple seconds, but it really, really helps us out. If you're listening on the podcast, give us a follow, rating, review wherever you get our podcasts. We have 6 takeaways from Illinois basketball start of practice. I've written some notes from what I've heard about practice on our VIP board. You can check that out as well. Also, some big-time visitors coming this weekend. I have the list up on the site right now, and Kyle Tosk will have a breakdown of all of that as well. So go check that out at IlliniInquirer.com. If you're not a VIP member, it's just $1 for your first month. So we will be basketball focused along with the football side over the next couple of months leading into the season. But appreciate you listening to the Illini Inquirer Podcast. Everybody have a great day. Take care of each other. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Illini Inquirer Podcast.